Hello everyone, Bertina Amy here, and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I thought I would do 5 Dollar Tree Valentine's Day DIYs. I really enjoyed making these, and I hope you enjoy watching them and consider making one of them as well. So for the first DIY project, I'm doing this Dollar Tree DIY Valentine's Day ornament, which I later go ahead and use to embellish my DIY Valentine's Day wreath. So they still sell these DIY wooden ornament kits over at the Dollar Tree. And if memory serves, they come in 8 packs. And anyways, I go ahead and take 2 pieces out and glue them together just using simple Elmer's glue. Feel free to use wood glue instead. You could actually skip this step entirely. I just wanted my piece to be a little thicker than the one piece of ornament. Next, I go ahead and decoupage the entire surface of the ornament using scrap tissue paper that I tore to shreds. And of course, it has to be crinkly or it's not going to do the project justice, but that's just my personal opinion. Feel free to skip the step as well if you don't want the texture, but I absolutely love texture. Once dry, I go ahead and poke the holes right back out because I do want the word love to be shown, and feel free to skip the step if you don't want that word showing, or if you want it totally solid, you can skip that step. But once I poke the holes, I go ahead and go over it again with some more Mod Podge to try to get the pieces to stick down. Next, I go ahead and use flag red from Apple Barrel and just cover the entire surface of the ornament because I just really want it to all be the same shade of red, but I only use one coat. Then I wanted to clean out the little bit of paint left in this paint bottle, and I went with Barn Red. I used it in previous projects, and so I had a little bit left in there, and I just wanted to water it down because I knew I wanted to give this heart a wash of the color, and I felt this color was the perfect shade to use with this because it gave that deepening color without it being too dark or looking too dirty, if that makes sense, or too black or whatever. So I felt black would have been too sharp, and so I thought this Barn Red was absolutely perfect. Feel free to use whatever shade you prefer though. This kit also came with its own set of pre-cut twine for each ornament. And since I doubled up 2 of the ornaments, I decided to steal 2 of these pieces because I can't imagine using it again later. But anyways, I go ahead and tie 2 into a knot and then try to string it through and then just leave the knot in the back end of this ornament. And then I decided to check out my beads stash and decided to add beads that I had on hand. I bought this set from Goodwill for $2.99, and this was such a great set, and I absolutely loved the colors and was super excited when I found that there was even a heart bead. But I wanted to stick with Valentine's colors, so I go ahead and use purple shades and this one heart as well. And I go ahead and string it through, but I will say that the heart could not fit in with like the 2 strands of the twine, so I only strung it on one side and just made sure to hot glue the back side so that way you don't see the other side when you see the ornament, if that makes any sense, because I actually end up putting this on my wreath anyways. Then I just go ahead and make a knot at the very top. I also did make a knot prior to stringing the beads on there because I didn't want my beads to slide around. And here it is hanging on my DIY Valentine's Day wreath. Next, we have a DIY heart-shaped Valentine's Day wreath. And here, I'm referring to this as a reimagined DIY Dollar Tree decor type of thing because I did not find a single heart-shaped wreath at my local Dollar Trees nearby. And I want to say I checked at least 3. So what I did was I saw this piece from the Dollar Tree, looked at the back, and I thought, oh my god, this reminds me of a heart-shaped wreath form. So why don't I go ahead and pick it up and see what I can do with it to make it better. And I went ahead and selected this purple one with this tinsel on here. So the first thing I go ahead and do is I remove the entire tinsel off of this heart-shaped piece. And since I wasn't exactly sure where to start, I went ahead and just used a pair of scissors. Next, I go ahead and quickly remove the red ribbon off of the very top of this piece. Then I noticed this piece had all these little spikes on the inside and outside of the wreath form itself. So I tested out with my sharpest pair of scissors, which was probably not the best idea because it kind of made it dull. And so it kind of ruined this pair of scissors, but in any case, your best bet is to remove them if you're going to with pliers. And if you have the ability to do so, go ahead and sand it down. I tend to be more of what I call a lazy crafter, if that even makes any sense. And I try to skip that step altogether. And it ends up being just fine because with what I had in the resulting piece, it doesn't poke out at all, which is frankly really surprising and great. Feel free to, of course, skip this step, though I can't promise that it won't still stick out, but at the very least, it won't scratch your skin. But don't worry, I was super careful as I handled this product. Next, Dollar Tree has these pink burlap ribbon over in their Crafter's Square section, and I thought this would be perfect for this wreath form. So I ended up buying 4 rolls, and in taking this first one, I just take it completely off the roll, and I go ahead and fold it in half both ways off camera. Then I take my folded ribbon, I turn it around so that I can have the folded edge facing towards me, and starting on the right side of the heart, I just start wrapping around the outside edges of the wreath form. And here I'm simply just placing the ribbon on top of the wreath form, wrapping the ribbon around the edges, going around and under and through, pulling the ribbon and crossing them over each other. On the right side I'm doing right over left, and on the left I'm doing left over right, just so the pattern matches on both sides in sort of a mirror reflection, so that it's symmetrical. Once I finished a whole roll, I realized I needed another roll to complete the rest of this side. And to do that, I just took another roll and took the ribbon completely off. Then I folded it in half and cut it directly in half. Then I thought it made more sense to just finish the left side first, so here I am completing the left side. And as a friendly reminder, the only difference with the left side is that instead of going right over left, we are doing left over right. This is, of course, with using a brand new roll, so we are now up to 3 rolls of ribbon. I go ahead and finish the rest of that side off camera, and then I go ahead and show you how you can attach another set of ribbons. And earlier when we took the ribbon off of our second roll, we went ahead and cut that one in half. So I went ahead and off camera folded it in half lengthwise, so that way it's long, if that makes sense. So then I go ahead and use the folded edges and I attach them to the little bit of edges that are left over from the right side of this heart. Then I go ahead and continue the wrapping right over left on the right side until I get to the very end. And hot glue is absolutely perfect for this project. Just be mindful, because it is burlap, it is going to burn your skin. So it might be wise, or wiser than me anyways, to go ahead and wear something to keep that from happening to your skin. But if you don't mind it, then feel free to be bare like I am. Once those cool off, I go ahead and wrap the rest of the ribbon until I get to the bottom of the heart-shaped wreath. Then I noticed the excess amount of this ribbon and decided to test it out and see if 3 ribbons would be enough just to complete this project. So I go ahead and cut off the excess, leaving just a little bit just to be able to hot glue the edges to the back of the wreath. Then I take the remainder, add the hot glue to attach it to the other side, wrap the remaining of it off camera, hot glue the ends, and cut off the excess. And I still had plenty of excess at the end as well. Then off camera, I go ahead and weave in the old tinsel stuff that came with this project into the gaps around this wreath. Then I take the fairy lights from Dollar Tree that are heart-shaped, and I go ahead and weave them into the same spots as well. And this part is optional, but basically what I also do is I take those hearts and I make sure that the ends of those hearts, where it's pointy, I point them inwards towards this heart. And here I'm just making a slot for the battery pack with using the ribbon that I had left over. And I'm just hot gluing one edge to one side and the other edge to the other side, and making sure it's as taut as it can be while still being able to pull it out without it sliding too easily, if that makes any sense. And this way I can still access the battery pack regardless, so I can replace the battery. Then I go ahead and make the hanger off camera. And quick tip, if you don't want your wreath to hang on a tilt, then I recommend making sure to make your hanger on the same side as the battery pack. That way you can make sure it's well balanced out when you try to hang it. And here's the final result with the lights off and the lights on. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Next, we have a DIY Dollar Tree Valentine's Day centerpiece. This will be great, especially if you are doing some kind of a Valentine's Day celebration, whether it's a romantic one or just with a bunch of your gal pals. So for the centerpiece, I just go ahead and reuse my DIY photo frame box using products from Dollar Tree. And I go ahead and get one of these sort of cylindrical type foam, floral foam pieces from Dollar Tree. And I select whatever florals that I feel that I really love the most. And I tend to lean towards more purple than even pink or red. And I just go ahead and make an arrangement of my preference, you know, and just you can play around with this until you're really happy with the arrangement that you come up with. This can be a bit of trial and error before you find the arrangement that you like, so feel free to play around with this until you find the correct arrangement for yourself. If you like what I created though, feel free to recreate exactly what I did. My basic rule of thumb for creating these DIY floral arrangements is to basically try to avoid putting the florals of the exact same shade or color right next to each other. And in this particular case, how I'm doing that or accomplishing that is by making sure to incorporate the leaves that came with these florals as well. And that way you're using as much of your floral stems that you picked up as possible. And sometimes another way to go about it is to make sure to alternate the colors of the florals, especially if you're sticking with 2 shades of colors only. And once you have your arrangement that you really like, that's when I recommend that you go ahead and hot glue it all in. And I personally like to make sure none of that floral foam is still showing, so I use remaining leaves and or petals or split flowers up if needed to make sure I can expand my available florals that I have on hand at this point in time, because at the point in time of making this video, I didn't actually have time to go and pick out some more floral stems before requiring to have this video completed. I also decided to embellish it further using some baby's breath and some of these pink heart-shaped ornaments from Dollar Tree, as well as some of these heart white pieces from the floral stems that I picked out. And looking back at this video, I did honestly make this video last year, and if I were to recreate this myself again, I would actually not add the white heart-shaped thing in the middle of the centerpiece. I do think that's a little bit much, but other than that, I'm very happy with how it turned out. And of course, if this was your project, feel free to do it the way that you like best. And once that's completed, I go ahead and swap out the centerpieces, making sure to place in any spare parts from those floral stems I used into the bottom of the box first, then placing my centerpiece on top of that. Next is a Dollar Tree DIY Valentine's Day magnet. This is especially great, of course, for, you know, loving couples, but as well as galentines, maybe for your bestie or something like that. I think this would be awesome. So you can still buy these heart-shaped ornament pieces. They come in packs of, I believe, 8. And you're only going to need 2 of these to make this DIY Dollar Tree photo frame magnet. I really wanted to showcase the best photo my husband and I had from before I discovered I was pregnant, and also on our first concert together. Plus, we both absolutely love the colors of the image, and so I wanted to showcase our faces into these hearts. I go ahead and cut out 2 of these images because I know for a fact that the type of shape I need is going to cut into the face of the other person in this image. So I go ahead and cut 2 of them out so that I can actually go ahead and use one of these for this photo frame. I had some scrap construction paper laying around, so I decided to use it to help me make a template. So I just traced the inside of these hearts so that I know how large of a space I need of the images, and I can cut these shapes out, place them over our faces so I know exactly where it's going to cover and what parts of our faces are going to be captured, if that makes sense. And you are going to want to cut it slightly larger because once you put the 2 pieces together and glue them together, you're going to need that excess to be connected so that way it doesn't end up slipping right out, or not staying in place rather. I hope that makes sense. And actually, I do recommend that you go ahead and pick the pieces that you want to use and then paint them to the shade that you want. I did this backwards because that would have given it time to dry while I was going ahead and cutting out my templates and things like that, because you have excess pieces that you can use as a way to trace the inside part of the hearts anyway, and I just didn't think about that at the time that I was making this video. So in my experience with acrylic paints, I actually don't recommend that first red that I used. Instead, this metallic red is a better shade and actually is more opaque, and that way I won't need as many layers. So I do recommend that instead. However, even better if you can buy your paints over at Walmart for 50 cents a piece with the Apple Barrel brand. You're honestly not going to need a lot to cover the entire surface of it, so that way, even if you buy the Apple Barrel brand over at Walmart or even on Amazon, because sometimes you can find some for like 54 cents on there, and you can buy them with other things that you're ordering anyways. Like, I think those are such a great deal for acrylic paints, and you don't even need that much. So if you're doing this as like a one-off as far as like arts and crafts or DIY projects, I recommend that brand the most. And what you see me doing here is totally optional. I'm just filling in the hole for the ornament part of this project. I don't need it to be an ornament, so I'm filling it. You can skip that step, but it's up to you. I just didn't want that to be seen, so I wanted to cover it up and then paint over it. I decided to go ahead and use a fresh piece just to attach my images to, and I go ahead and use hot glue in the back end so that way the back end and the side edges of the wood would actually connect. I hope that makes sense. So I do that for both images. This part is optional, but I go ahead and take scrap tissue paper and decide to go around the hearts because I wanted to give it some texture. And then of course I paint over it again with the same red metallic acrylic paint from Dollar Tree. Then once that's dried, I go ahead and hot glue the front piece to the back piece. Feel free to use wood glue instead. Then I decided to go ahead and add a little bit of this purple metallic paint over top as well, and I think that actually gives it some more something. I'm not sure what to call it, but let me know what you think in the comments below. This part is of course optional as well. And here it is so far. And here is the purple metallic paint, but you can definitely use the one from Dollar Tree, and I am also adding some extreme sparkle that's also on screen. Next, I'm taking this magnet set from Dollar Tree. I believe these are the biggest ones that you can find there too. And I'm just arranging them on the back of my DIY fridge magnet. And here I only needed 5 pieces in the back, and I just hot glued them on the back. And there's the final result of that, as well as the sound effects. And it still holds well today. Next is a Dollar Tree DIY Valentine's Day painting. And here I'm going to show you 2 different ideas that you can do with these paintings. First, I recommend selecting a coloring page, then making sure to trace it over top your canvas of choice. And you can do that simply by using carbon paper, or you can also color the back of the sheet with pencil. Once you're done tracing, I recommend using a Sharpie and going over all the lines so that you can see it through the painting once you start painting it, especially if you're going to do acrylic paints. Once you're done with that, go ahead and start painting, and I use acrylic paints and I show them on screen which ones I use specifically, but feel free to use whatever colors you have on hand. However, these are the paints that I already had on hand, and that's why I'm using those. Once that's done, I recommend going over the lines, the black lines, with Sharpie again, just to make sure that the lines show up very, very well, because acrylic paint can cover some of that. Then if you want, you can embellish it further, or add more details rather into your painting if you want to add some distant flying birds or a butterfly or something like that, like I did. And here I'm just adding some puffy clouds, making sure to kind of be a little bit gentle with it and just try to make it so that's not so opaque, so that you can kind of see some other blue shades in there as well. For the nose, I chose a beige tone paint and then added some pink to give it some highlights around the nose. Then I used a brown and some sort of tan shade so that I had 2 different shades to show that the hair had strands. And I just painted the shoes black. And optional, of course, I'm just using my paintbrush to create a simple butterfly silhouette and some flying birds in the distance. And I fixed the gnome outfit off camera using 2 different shades of pink instead of red, since that's what I had on hand and I didn't like the red that I had. I go ahead and go back over the lines with Sharpie as well. And then I place it into a Dollar Tree frame of the corresponding size. The next idea, I just take some black chalk paint and paint an entire white canvas black. Then I trace an image of a rose using my pencil and a carbon copy paper. Once that's done, I trace that or outline that in a white gel pen. Then I go ahead and take my blue metallic paint, and I don't even bother watering it down. Then I go ahead and paint it on the canvas just as the backdrop. And I like that it's not totally opaque because I want to see some of that black in the background. Then I go ahead and use this green paint that I had on hand, and I paint the rose's stem and leaves. Then I take my red paint and do the same thing for the rose petals. And I wanted to tone down the metallic paint in the background, so I go ahead and put a wash of black over top. And once dry, I go ahead and trace the outline of the rose in my silver Sharpie, then cut the outline of the rose roughly so that there's extra space. Then I use that to block the rose, and then take some white paint and sprinkle it on around the background, so that it looks like that we have stars. And here is the final result with the rose inside of the frame. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.